Okay, what's up, guys? When I heard this story, it literally amazed me. I thought I knew everything about World War II and Auschwitz. I'd read all of the crazy stories and all of the stories that are noteworthy, but the story that I read on thefirstnews.com has just blown me away. The midwife of Auschwitz, the heroine who delivered 3,000 babies in Auschwitz. It's written here, in the disease-ridden, bug-infested barracks of Auschwitz death camp, few expected to survive. Rats the size of dogs gorged themselves on the noses, ears, fingers, and toes of those too weak to move. So, obviously, with hundreds of thousands of people coming to the camp, as the article here explains, you've got thousands of women who are actually pregnant. And one woman sought to defy the camp's murderous policy by delivering as many babies as possible. One hero, and her name was Stanisława Leszczynska. And she was a prisoner at the German-operated Auschwitz II Birkenau extermination camp, who somehow, by a miracle, performed 3,000 births. It's just going to be turned into a new film called The Midwife, Położna. It's an hour-long documentary directed by her great niece, Maria Stachowska, who also wrote the screenplay. But there's a couple of twists, guys. So just to go into a little bit of background, Stanisława Leszczynska was arrested. Her husband was a printer, and her sons, they've been preparing false documents for Jewish Poles living in the ghetto in Łódź, and Stanisława had been getting food for them. So when they were arrested, the Gestapo swoops in and sends Leszczynska and her daughter to Auschwitz. Her husband escapes, but then he dies in the Warsaw Uprising. It's just yet another tragic story. But what's unusual is that when Stanisława Leszczynska arrives in 1943, she had her midwife papers in a bag, and she managed to somehow keep them on her, which is amazing. She then somehow manages to report to a German doctor as a midwife. Again, you get shot on the spot for doing that. And she ends up actually being assigned to what you would call a maternity ward in normal world, but obviously in Auschwitz was horror upon horror. And guys, when I read this is just sends chills through my bones. Upon arrival, most pregnant women were simply sent to the gas chambers. Others were summarily executed. The remainder were sent to hospital barracks. There, a German orderly named Sister Clara would declare every new baby as stillborn, and without cutting the umbilical cord, would hold the baby in a bucket of water as it kicked and screamed for the duration of its brief life, often in front of the broken mother who had just given birth. The dead babies were tossed outside the barrack, where bloated rats would gorge themselves on this regular harvest. Story says that Leszczynska decided to do something. She was ordered not to cut the umbilical cord, but she wouldn't do that. She was too religious. She was a deeply Catholic person. And that she wouldn't murder any children. She said she would do what she was supposed to do as a human being. And apparently this attracted the ire of the famous Joseph Mengele, who was literally hopping mad, quote, as Leszczynska years later described, only seeing his black boots jumping off the ground. Befehl ist Befehl, an order is an order, he screamed. Although over time the rules regarding this instant death were relaxed a little, it was marginal. Jewish babies were still killed straight after birth, and only non-Jewish mothers, so mainly Poles and Soviet women, were allowed to lie with their newborn babies. Sadly, these babies still ended up dying a slow, cruel death because of the lack of food that they had. According to Leszczynska's own report, during the time she was incarcerated in Auschwitz II Birkenau, she delivered 3,000 babies. She reported that 30 babies survived until the liberation of the death camp on 27th of January, although other accounts have suggested that 60 were born. Now, what's extraordinary is that Leszczynska's own granddaughter, Elżbieta, looks so like her that she's actually going to play the character of Stanisława Leszczynska in the documentary, which has been playing. And we got a quote here from a survivor in the article, Maria Orozhinska, where great people and adults seem to be human beings, their hearts frozen by the desire to survive the camp. She, Stanisława Leszczynska, a tiny, weak woman, was the embodiment of good. Well, Leszczynska apparently managed to survive. She stayed inside Birkenau. She didn't go on the death march outside of Auschwitz. And this film is going to capture her. This is all in the story. But there's also, guys, I'm not going to tell you what it is. There's a crazy twist to this entire story, which links Stanisława Leszczynska to one of the world's best footballers. What's that story? You'll have to click on the link in the description to find out more. It's on thefirstnews.com, and I heartily recommend the story, Midwife of Auschwitz.